Samson told a fascinating story in chapter 7 of Proverbs about how he covertly watched a young man be entrapped by a harlot. But he wasn't minding his own business when it happened. He intentionally walked a path that he knew was filled with such traps, at a time when he knew they'd be out there waiting for him. And he did so because he set aside wisdom in favor of folly. And the harlot, she was a master at recognizing and using the folly of others to her own ends. Now in chapter 8, Solomon turns to another woman. In contrast to the painted lady harlot is what seems the plain Jane of wisdom. Set the two side by side and look at them from a distance. Wisdom doesn't seem nearly as desirable or fun. But get closer and you see that the harlot's beauty is a thin veneer of paint. Under all of that makeup, she's not at all appealing. Wisdom, on the other hand, has a natural beauty only appreciated by close acquaintance. Her clothes are modest but well-made, sensible. The harlot is loud, forever laughing. Wisdom's quiet countenance is always appropriate to the occasion. It's a bit like those home renovation shows you may have seen. The flip house looks stunning in the listing photos. Fresh paint, staged furniture, perfect lighting. Then the inspector shows up and finds the foundation is cracked, the wiring is from 1962, and there's a mystery smell in the basement. Folly is the flip house. Wisdom is the old farmhouse that doesn't photograph well but has good bones and will outlast the flip house by a century. We hear now from Lady Wisdom. Verse 1 of Proverbs 8. Does not wisdom cry out and understanding lift up her voice? She takes her stand on the top of the high hill, beside the way where the paths meet. She cries out by the gates, at the entry of the city, at the entrance of the doors. To you, O men, I call, and my voice is to the sons of men. O you simple ones, understand prudence, and you fools, be of an understanding heart. Listen, for I will speak of excellent things, and from the opening of my lips will come right things, for my mouth will speak truth. Wickedness is an abomination to my lips. All the words of my mouth are with righteousness. Nothing crooked or perverse is in them. They are all plain to him who understands, and right to those who find knowledge. Receive my instruction, and not silver, and knowledge rather than choice gold. For wisdom is better than rubies, and all the things one may desire cannot be compared with her. I, wisdom, dwell with prudence, and find out knowledge and discretion. The Hebrew word for prudence here is armah. When used of work, it meant fine craftsmanship. Applied to the intellect, it's sometimes translated shrewd, which has a slight negative connotation in modern English. Prudence is practical understanding. It's intelligence at work. It's knowing not only what to do, but how and when to do it the best way. It's that wisdom that permeates Proverbs. Solomon isn't philosophizing here. These aren't lofty ideas useful only when brainiacs gather to impress each other with their erudition and wit. This is wisdom in a work apron. Prudence has calloused hands. This is the skill for successful living, not just for winning an argument. Now think of the difference between a philosophy professor who can write eloquently on the ethics of carpentry and a craftsman who can actually build a chair that won't collapse when someone sits in it. Proverbs is firmly on the chair that doesn't collapse team. Now wisdom is personified and speaks of its connection to God, verse 13. The fear of the Lord is to hate evil, pride and arrogance and the evil way and the perverse mouth I hate. Repeatedly, we are told that wisdom begins with the fear of God. If someone has a proper respect for God, then he or she already has a measure of wisdom. A mark, a sign of a real fear of God is a hatred of evil, especially the arrogant plotting to sin. The mindset of someone who lives with such low regard for God that they think themselves beyond His judgment. Some time ago, I heard a famous actor, I'm not going to say who it was, say, if there's a God, He's got a lot of explaining to do. That's the posture of the second part of verse 13 in a nutshell. God is the defendant. Man is the judge. Wisdom flips that bench entirely. Now, verse 14, counsel is mine and sound wisdom. I am understanding, I have strength. By me kings reign and rulers decree justice. By me princes rule and nobles, all the judges of the earth. I love those who love me, and those who seek me diligently will find me. While the harlot of chapter 7 uses her customers and eventually uses them up, Lady Wisdom builds up, steadies, equips, and guides those who know her. The harlot is a thief who steals life and strength, sense, health, wealth, while wisdom adds all of that. Verse 18, riches and honor are with me, enduring riches and righteousness. My fruit is better than gold, yes, than fine gold, and my revenue than choice silver. I traverse the way of righteousness in the midst of the paths of justice, that I may cause those who love me to inherit wealth, that I may fill their treasuries. All the things that harlot Folly promised but couldn't deliver, really had no intention of delivering, are the benefits of Lady Wisdom. Now Solomon tells us why wisdom is the way to go. Because it's integral to creation. Listen, it's the way God designed things to work. Verse 22, the Lord possessed me at the beginning of his way, before his works of old. I have been established from everlasting, from the beginning, before there was ever an earth. When there were no depths, I was brought forth. When there was no fountains abounding with water, before the mountains were settled, before the hills, I was brought forth. While as yet he had not made the earth or the fields or the primal dust of the world. When he prepared the heavens, I was there. When he drew a circle on the face of the deep, when he established the clouds above, when he strengthened the fountains of the deep, when he assigned to the sea its limit, so that the waters would not transgress his command, when he marked out the foundations of the earth, then I was beside him as a master craftsman, and I was daily his delight, rejoicing always before him, rejoicing in his inhabited world, and my delight was with the sons of men. This really does get to the heart of the matter. Wisdom is the underlying reality that all creation stands on. It's knowing and applying the reason behind all things, which is to glorify God. I'm sitting here doing this to glorify God. And chances are you're watching or listening to this to glorify God. If you're single, it's to glorify God. Married, it's to glorify God. That trial that you're going through right now is to glorify God. How you glorify Him in the uniqueness of your specific situation is what wisdom is all about. It's worth pausing on verse 30's picture of wisdom as a master craftsman alongside God at creation. The word is aman in Hebrew, sometimes rendered as artisan or little child. Those are two very different things. Why then that word for wisdom's role in creation? Well, because it captures both skilled work and the delight of a child at play. You see, the picture is creation as something joyful, not merely functional. God didn't grind out the universe like a tired contractor finishing a punch list. He delighted in it. And get this, in verse 31, wisdom says, my delight was with the sons of men. Before Adam took his first breath, wisdom already delighted in him. You were thought of with joy before you existed. Now sit with that for a moment, especially if you're someone who grew up in an abusive environment where love was in short supply. Or if you've recently been rejected by someone that you assumed was a forever friend and a partner, maybe a husband or a wife, a parent or a bestie. This is one of the devil's most insidious lies, to cause us to self-brand as worthless because of the way that others treat us, or the hateful words that they hurl at us like sling stones and shoot our way like flaming arrows. Listen to me now, please. You were there in Adam. The eternal God saw you in Adam and Eve before they bit that forbidden fruit, and He delighted in you. Though the world fell with that fateful bite, the wisdom that God created by and with is woven into the fabric of the creation around you. It's still there, still waiting for you to lay hold of it and know the life that you were created for. Okay, so wisdom ends its impassioned appeal in verse 32. Now, therefore, listen to me, my children, for blessed are those who keep my ways. Hear instruction and be wise, and do not disdain it. Blessed is the man who listens to me, watching daily at my gates, waiting at the posts of my doors. For whoever finds me finds life and obtains favor from the Lord. But he who sins against me wrongs his own soul. All those who hate me love death. No comment is really needed there, is there? Wisdom makes it plain. Wisdom's the way of life, folly's the way of death. Why then would anyone choose folly over wisdom? There's a simple, age-old question that there's no easy answer to, other than this. Sin makes people stupid. Okay, now we come to chapter 9, the last chapter in Solomon's message to his son about why and how to pursue wisdom and shun folly. Chapter 10 begins the Proverbs themselves. That is, those short, pithy sayings contrasting wisdom and folly. At the end of the episode, I'm going to explain how we're going to go about studying the rest of the Proverbs. Here in chapter 9, Solomon likens wisdom to someone who's built a glorious mansion and then prepared a marvelous feast for visitors to enjoy. Verse 1, wisdom has built her house. She has hewn out her 7 pillars. She's slaughtered her meat. She's mixed her wine. She has also furnished her table. She has sent out her maidens, and she cries out from the highest places of the city, "Whoever is simple, let him turn in here." As for him who lacks understanding, she says to him, "Come, eat of my bread and drink of my wine that I have mixed. Forsake foolishness and live, and go in the way of understanding." Because wisdom is, wise, it's already achieved success. But it doesn't hoard that success. It wants to give it away to any and all who will heed its call. Wisdom isn't just for those who can afford it. It isn't for a special class or a group. It invites all. The 7 pillars here was no small construction project in the ancient Near East. This is a house that's built to last, built to host, built to impress without needing to. Now compare that to Folly a few verses later, who doesn't build anything. She just sits at her door waiting for suckers to wander by. Wisdom invests. Folly squats. Despite an open invitation, wisdom is shunned by some. That shunning is the telltale song of a fool. Verse 7, he who corrects a scoffer gets shame for himself, and he who rebukes a wicked man only harms himself. Do not correct a scoffer, lest he hate you. Rebuke a wise man, and he will love you. Give instruction to a wise man, and he will be wiser still. Teach a just man, and he will increase in learning. Wisdom knows it's never perfect. There's always room for more wisdom. When the wise are corrected, they answer humbly. Rebuke a wise man, and he'll thank you. Correct a fool, and he'll attack. So when dealing with a fool, don't bother correcting him, because it's just going to boomerang back on you. This just tracks with everyday experience, doesn't it? Try telling a friend who's genuinely growing in their walk with God that they've messed up with something, and you'll often get a thanks. You're right. I need to work on that. Tell an internet troll he's wrong about anything, and you'll get an essay in response, and you'll be the villain in it. Verse 10, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. This oft-quoted axiom is echoed elsewhere. We read about it in both Job and in the Psalms. The Hebrew word for fear here is yirah. It's most often translated as fear, but fear has many causes. This fear comes from the most profound respect for what's feared. It's the care and caution that we'd use with a loaded gun. You're not afraid of it, but you're supremely respectful of it. The danger something or someone presents is directly proportional to your relationship to it. Treat it with respect and caution, all's good. Mistreat or ignore the danger, disaster is just around the corner. Hey, where is that more true than in your relationship to God? Wisdom begins by being in right relationship with Him, because a right relationship with God has a huge impact on the rest of life. Verse 11, for by me your days will be multiplied, and years of life will be added to you. Now, though I've said this a couple of times in our studies so far, it bears repeating because it's a common misconception. The promises attached to Proverbs aren't ironclad guarantees in every case. They're generally true with notable exceptions. It's a classic case of the exception proving the rule. It's generally true that walking in wisdom means a long and successful life, because the wisdom found in Proverbs aligns us with the way that God has created the world to function and for us to live. It centers us fully in what it means to be human and in right relationship with God and His creation. The exceptions come when embracing that wisdom and doing things God's way sets us at odds with a world in rebellion against Him. The person who walks in wisdom in the midst of a society that honors that wisdom is almost certainly going to live long and prosper. But the person who walks in wisdom in the midst of a society in full-scale rebellion against God, defying His word and His ways, even redefining what it means to be human, is going to be in opposition and hostility and possibly even to the point of death with the one who's walking with God. She or he may not live long nor prosper, but that stands as evidence not that the person walking in wisdom is wrong, but that the society abusing her or him is. Daniel, the prophet, did everything right in Babylon and still ended up in a lion's den. Joseph did everything right, still ended up in a pit, then in a prison. Wisdom didn't fail them, the world around them did. Verse 12, if you are wise for yourself. And if you scoff, you'll bear it alone. Each has to choose for themselves to be foolish or wise. Now Solomon returns to the personification of folly as a harlot. In contrast to wisdom's sedate, reasonable, gentle invitation is folly's brash and popular appeal. Verse 13, a foolish woman is clamorous. She is simple and knows nothing. For she sits at the door of her house on a seat by the highest places of the city to call to those who pass by, who go straight on their way. Whoever is simple, let him turn in here. And as for him who lacks understanding, she says to him, stolen water is sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. Though folly leads to ruin, it's appealing precisely because it taps into our brokenness. It connects to what the fall did in all of us. It promises to satisfy our desires. And indeed it does, for a moment anyway. That's why we keep sinning. It is pleasurable. But the pleasure of sin always devolves into the lasting consequence of sorrow and ruin and eventually death. That's why Romans 6:23 says the wages of sin are death. The fish bites and enjoys the taste of the worm or the cheese or the salmon egg, whatever bait the fisherman used. But the real result is a hook that turns it into dinner. Note that Folly's house is at a high place, a place of favor. It's a position that she could not have secured without official sanction. She's in partnership with a system that promotes her. She could not occupy such a prominent place were it not for the world's permission. And then, did you notice her invitation in verse 16? She says, whoever is simple, let him turn in here. That sounds an awful lot like wisdom in verse 4. Whoever is simple, let him turn in here. Folly can't admit it's evil because no one would fall for it. Satan didn't tempt Eve by saying, eat of the forbidden fruit and suffer endlessly. He said, eat so you can be like God. Folly can only get its job done by masquerading as good. It says sin's fun, it feels good. And to deny the pleasure of sin is unwise or untrue. Yes, it is at first. No one would sin if there wasn't a reward. Temptation works precisely because there's a pleasure payoff. The problem is the payoff never lasts, and the payout is ruin. When tempted, don't get stuck looking only at the immediate payoff. Look past it to the ultimate payout. Every late-night infomercial works this way. The product promises everything, delivers a fraction of it, and the buyer's remorse hits about 3 days after the credit card statement arrives. Folly's whole business model is selling the pitch, not the product. Folly's lie is in verse 17. The fact is, all water is sweet to the thirsty. Water rightly obtained is no less sweet than that which is stolen, and it won't leave you looking over your shoulder. Stolen water tastes sweet, but turns bitter in guilt and the fear of being caught. Solomon now wraps up his introduction to the Proverbs with a look beyond folly's seductions to what lies beyond her door. Verse 18. But he does not know that the dead are there, that her guests are in the depths of hell. Folly runs a shuttle service to hell. And the tragedy is the fare is free, which is exactly what makes it so easy to board. All right, that ends the introduction to the book of Proverbs, and now we get into chapter 10, which gives us the classic Proverbs, short, pithy statements that contrast wisdom and folly through various themes of life. And the way that we're going to go about our study in the rest of the book is to not look verse by verse through the rest of the chapters, but we're going to take the Proverbs and we're going to break them down thematically under certain subject headings. Then what I'll do is I'll read representative Proverbs from each of those themes, and we'll investigate them and unpack them to see what the book of Proverbs has to say about each of these themes.